So I got this Harvey Alpha 36-inch table saw about 2 years ago, and I did a unboxing and assembly video for it then, and I'll put a link for it here if you want to see that. Pretty straightforward, but I've used it for 2 years, and one of the things that I have not been, I wouldn't say unhappy, but annoying, is that the blade sits a little too deep, which means there's not enough room at the back to catch any of the timber. That is the case for most table saws, that they need an outfeed table. But given that the blade sits that far, needing an outfeed table for this one is a little bit more critical. So that's the problem. Now, going on to the challenges for this one. Challenge number 1, space. Challenge number 2, just behind the camera, I have my workbench, which is pretty much a full sheet of plywood just slapped on to 4 legs. And when I made that, I didn't know what I wanted. Like any other woodworker, it's always an evolution learning experience. I have found that big size of bench very, very handy. I don't want to move away from it, which means I can't have a bench sitting right next to the table saw, right abutting it. In line with that, when I did make that bench was made to the height of my previous table saw, and it was perfect. And my previous table saw was a portable worksite Bosch table saw, so didn't take much room, worked brilliantly. That's not the case now. Obviously this one's a bigger cabinet saw, so it takes a little bit more room, plus the bench is pretty big. So that's challenge number 3. Now I can modify that bench, and actually I do need to make modifications to that bench because it's on the way out. I've had that bench for 6-7 years, and it needs a little bit of a work and then some. So I'm going to jig it. Yeah, it's on the way out, so it needs a little bit more work than just cut off the feet and adjust the height or add height, whatever. So I don't want to modify that too much. Challenge number 4, I like the movement around the table saw, so it is beneficial in terms of putting the camera, just working all around the bench. So I like it that way. So I'm always going to have a gap between the workbench and the table saw. If that changes in the future, I can always evolve and fix it. As any woodworker will tell you, it's a constant evolution. So that brings me to the challenge number 5, that the outfeed table needs to be temporary, basically not a permanent fixed outfeed. And that is the biggest challenge. How do you install something temporary but also foldable, because we need the gap, and yeah, so that's challenge number 5. Minor issues or conditions, sub conditions. The Harvey table saw that I have is the general one, the generic one. I upgraded to the big eye rib fence, and that is, don't get me wrong, the best decision about this table saw is the big eye fence. I mean, as some of the people on the internet will confess, it is an amazing fence. The issue with that is that it locks at the front and the back. Now, if it locks at the back, and I'll move the camera and show you, that bit needs clearance. So even if I do cater for this locking mechanism here and some sort of piece of timber locked in, a solution's there, but I don't want to make any holes in this rail, simply because if I choose to sell this for some reason in the future, I don't want to sell it with holes in it. It just reduces the value for it, in my opinion. I think there's a better solution. So when you buy your big eye rib fence from Harvey, they actually come with these brackets. I have checked on unboxing videos. A lot of people don't know what they are. It's clearly labeled, and these brackets are for extension outfeed table from Harvey. Now I could simply get that one and call it a day, but there's a couple of issues. One, I can't find that extension table here in Australia. Even if I am able to import it, it's going to be expensive. And I just don't like the look of it. It's a permanent thing. I want something that can move out of the way. It doesn't, so that one doesn't work for me. But regardless, these brackets are lifesavers for this. So I don't have to really think about anything. Just screw them on and build my extension table based on these. So let's get stuck into it.
Decided to use formply to make the outfeed table, which is a no-brainer because it is flat, smooth on the top and easy to use. This here is exactly why I need an outfeed table. If I have anything longer than 1200 mil, I have to play this game of cat and mouse where I run the piece through halfway, stop the table saw, which is very unsafe and also adds a little bit of inconsistency with the cut, pull the timber back, move the entire table saw back, and then continue with the cut. Yes, it doesn't help that the bench is not of the same height, but that is a problem for Ron. Once the cut is made, trying to grab the piece of timber between the hose and over the blade is just not safe and very uncomfortable. I do have to make a bit of a confession. Before starting this project, I spent a couple of hours running through all the calculations, working out all the gaps, distances, and the lengths I needed. Once I had all that sorted, making the outfeed table was actually pretty straightforward. I roughly knew where I wanted to place the brackets on the backer board. So after marking the locations for them, I cut elongated holes to give myself room for adjustment for leveling the outfeed table to the table saw top, which you'll see shortly. So I've made a small error in calculation and I haven't accounted for this bracket. I can see right here, and so the board goes like that, and it doesn't go past that. Means that it is overhanging on this side, which I don't want. I want it to be flush or inside on the right hand side. So yeah, we'll just take some off of this end and shorten the length. Like any other project in my workshop, it is full of mistakes. And it took me 3 goes to get this right, but we got there in the end, and that's what matters. Whilst screwing a backer board onto a couple of brackets seems very simple, it was not simple because it needed to be precise so that I could level the backer board to the tabletop and get the right length so I could then fix the outfeed table on it correctly.
Right, so this backing board is on. As you can see, I've leveled it and given 0.5 mil of clearance with the finish on top, but of course that is adjustable in case it moves or there's a bend or whatever. So that's that. Now I will try and put the brackets that'll hold the shelf on or outfeed table. I've decided to go with these collapsible bracket thingamabobs. I think these are pretty good solution for what we have here.
After marking out the locations for the fold down brackets, it was a pretty simple process. Drill holes, screw them on. The only thing that I had to make sure was that they didn't come in line with the miter slots. Once I placed the top onto the backer board and the brackets, I offset it by 42 mil exact, and that's the gap I need between the outfeed table and the table saw top for the fence to move unobstructed. After clamping everything in place, it was just a matter of drilling and screwing it from underneath. Something to note, which has been very confusing for me, is that these brackets that I bought from Amazon said that they can handle up to 150 pounds, which is about 70 kilos. But in the same paragraph, it said that they can handle 300 pounds, which is 150 kilos. So I'm not sure if it is per pair or one. So I wasn't really confident going into buying these brackets in terms of how much load they would take. Once I raised and lowered the outfeed table a few times, I was able to understand the amount of deflection that was there and then figure out the final depth of the outfeed table and keep this cut for the very end. Once I cut the final width, there was one more critical cut to make. If you were one of the keen observers, you might have noticed that the table, when folded down, actually extends above the table saw top, which would obviously not work. So I cut the outfeed table in line with the backer board, making sure that it sits either flush or just slightly below the table saw top.
That obviously works. Everything's good. It's done. I still have to do a couple of tests, but before I do that, what I want to do is take off that much area so that I don't hit myself in the corners. It's pretty tight here. There's only about 700 mil of clearance. Even if I move everything there, it's just, there's no need to have that corner. Same way with this one. Highly unlikely that I'll hit this one, but I still want to cut off. It's unnecessary, so I'll do that, and then I'll give this a little bit of a round over so that the edges are a bit nicer to touch. And I think that's pretty much it for that. No, yeah, then I can make some
grooves for the dado slots for the miter bars. Got lucky there. Some final thoughts on the outfeed table and the goals that I had set at the start of the video. I needed clearance in between the table saw and the outfeed table so that the big rib fence can move freely on the rails without any obstruction. I needed the entire setup to be a temporary fix, which I was able to achieve with the brackets that come with the big rib fence. I needed clearance in between the outfeed table and the bench should I need to work while I'm also using the table saw. Using these foldable collapsible brackets, I get this space back so I can work around the bench, which I quite enjoy and find it very useful. Looking at something that is average length that I might use in the shop, that works really well, catches all the timber. Why I'm calling that a catch at the moment is because, as you would have seen at the start of the video, the bench across the table saw is not the correct height for this table saw, and that is going to be a problem for Ron. If you know, you know. And once that is sorted, the timber can move from the outfeed table on top of the bench, and then the bench can become a catch. Now, one thing I do want to address is the brackets that do come with the big rib fence. At this stage, I simply don't know how stable they are. I have noticed a slight dip in the outfeed table, but it is simply an unknown in terms of how much load it can take or how much it will bow over time because of movement in the timber. Whilst plywood is pretty stable, there is going to be movement or any other reasons, but that's just simply an unknown at this stage, and I cannot account for how I would be able to solve it, whether that's with fold down feet or with brackets. Again, they need to be temporary, but that is going to be something I will have to use and figure out eventually, and I'll share more when I know more. But that's all for this one, so thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.